gather feedback from the students on how the classroom is going to continue what's working well and to implement changes. And so the department has been looking at just things overall, so we want to get your feedback. So we're hoping that in the next, maybe next week or the beginning of the week after, we'd like to meet with you outside of class for probably 20 minutes, no more than 30 minutes. We're just going to ask you some questions and put that information together. So it'd probably be on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, somewhere between 4:30 to 8. Just a raise of hands, how many people would be willing to go to that?
What time did you say it was?
So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, or a Friday between 4:30 and 8. And as an incentive, we'll be providing Subway for you all. So okay, so I'm gonna try to get, I want the most people to come. So if I did it next Monday around 4:30 or 5, how many people could come? Raise your hand.
It's July 3rd.
How long will it be?
About 20 to 30 minutes. Raise your hand.
Monday?
Yes, next Monday.
Monday, July 3rd, 4:30?
Yes.
Wait, can I say that one more time?
Yes.
When 6 o'clock, could more be count? Raise your hand. Keep hands up.
Oh, I can come anytime.
Seven.
Evan needs a place.
Okay. Is Monday the best day, or is Wednesday or Friday better?
Might as well do a Monday because
Okay. So it sounds like Monday around 5 would be the best. Okay. So I have a sign-up sheet, and this is just so it'll be somewhere in this room. I'm gonna reserve a place for us to meet. But I need your name and your email so I can contact you. And obviously I will throw in your information after that. But if you could, I'll just pass it around to the different groups. If you could sign up, that would be great. Does anyone have any questions?
Is the feedback just for the university, or does it go back to the department, like the teachers?
So it's for the department.
So let me explain this. Typically Scott students do classes. This is for the program. This is one of our accreditation requirements that we need to have student governance. And so we have the Scott program do it so that we're out of that loop, so that you can do it honestly, provide that feedback. Then what they do is they de-identify it so that, you know, there's no names or anything, and they give us like the top trends, they give us, you know, some of the comments or kind of a summary of the comments, and then we take that to our faculty council and share it with all faculty. So what we're wanting is not what you think about 490. What is it that you think about the program? It's particularly important because you're about to graduate. And so we really want to hear what you have to say. So that's where it goes. I suppose, Kara, there would be a possibility that this would be shared with the university should they be interested and want to know. But this is really our mechanism to say, what do the students think as a group about the program?
So whenever it gets to this table, I'll just.
Catherine, we're taping this. We do have students who aren't able to be here, and so they'll watch this afterwards. Would you like to just share with them contact information if they would like to attend, so that you just put them on your list?
Sure.
If you'll just look at the camera. Yeah, sure. I hope that's, yeah, I think that is. It's probably directed like here, so yeah, I have there.
So we decided on.
So we're emailing you?
No,
This would be.
Lindsay, is that about right?
I have no idea.
This would be just the students who are watching on the video. So all of you can sign up on the form that she's sending around.
Okay.
So this is because if there's other students that would like to attend this meeting. Okay, Sue, so this is Monday, July the 3rd,
I'll be there.
5 p.m.
I'll camp out.
And the email that you're going to, oh, yeah, hopefully you can still see this. Catherine Thomas, I'm the facilitator.
Is this hers? Is this her pencil?
Yeah. And her email address is BYU-I.edu. And if you didn't get that, talk with somebody in class. Okay, thank you, Catherine.
Hammond will know.
Our next exciting announcement is Mariah. Mariah, come on up. And you're going to notice that Mariah weighs a little bit less.
That is beautiful. I got to see her yesterday.
Give us the details.
So she came from Kuwait, my water broke first, and we drove 2 hours to Rexburg to the hospital, and I definitely got the epidural, and I was like, I'll see how far I can go, and then I was like, no. I was good by that time. I was dilated enough to be able to get a little nap before the doctor came, and my mom and husband did too, and she came and she was healthy, and it's great. So thanks for your interest.
Would you like
And 7 pounds 2 ounces. She's gained 30 since
She's like a
3 ounces.
Well, we are so excited for you. So you know what? You can be pregnant and have a baby during a semester. You can do anything. You guys are awesome. All right, this morning, we're going to talk about the changing landscape of professional nursing leadership. That's quite a mouthful. And why do you think that we chose this topic? Why do we think it's important enough to spend one of your lessons teaching you about the changing landscape of nursing leadership? You did some reading. You probably noticed that the 3 chapters that you read really were quite different from each other, weren't they? So why did we pull those together? Why did we talk to you about problem solving and decision making? Why did, or I should say, why did we have you read about that? Why did we have you read about the different kinds of healthcare organizations? And why did we essentially have you read about customer service? How do those relate to each other? Why do we care?
Well, as we've talked about in previous classes, I mean, this environment, the society is completely changing all the time, and so we need to be able to make changes in our leadership skills and in our management skills as well. And then also, I mean, it also leads to customer satisfaction ratings. I mean, if you're leading your team correctly, or if you have a good team manager, then you're going to have good customer satisfaction or clientele, because they're going to be able to feel that, or the nurses are going to be more motivated and incentivized to do good work.
Thank you. That is a great summary. So in the past few weeks, we've talked about personal change, haven't we? How do you change yourself? How do you change your team? But now we're going to look at changes that are really beyond your control to a certain extent. At this moment, they're beyond your control. In a few years, probably you'll be part of those changes. Some of you may be driving those changes because there's a lot of different places that I expect to see you working in a few years, and it isn't necessarily the hospital. So let's talk about that just a little bit. The whole landscape is changing. A year and a half ago, we were talking to you about the Affordable Care Act and all the changes that it made. Did we expect that that would be repealed so quickly? That made huge changes, but now this change is going to create more changes. What's going to change, do you think? Is anybody following what changes might occur as a consequence of the repeal of the Affordable Care Act? Yes, Ryan?
Insurance is no longer going to be required, and so it should hopefully decrease the cost of insurance, but it's also going to decrease the level of coverage that is. So currently right now, insurance companies are forced to cover certain things, and with the repeal, it will not have to cover those, thus decreasing the price. And so we're also going to see a lot of people not covered that are currently covered. And so I'm moving back to Southern California, and LA County has one of the highest, what do you call it, rates of people that are on Obamacare. So it's going to be like over 3 million people that will no longer have insurance.
What are the
in my-
consequences of that? Can you give us a little prediction or perhaps a little back into history?
Probably a lower patient to nurse ratio. Not just joking. But there's just going to be less people going to the doctor and more
Yes,
people getting
going
sick.
to the doctor, but where are they going to go?
The ER.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's the consequence of that?
Well, like with the ER, sometimes people don't necessarily pay their bills, and so that's going to cost the hospital more.
And for the most part, really, is it going to cost the hospital more money, or who is it ultimately going to cost?
The pain.
It'll probably come back to us as taxpayers. Although the cost of the insurance was high, so I don't know if personally we'll see a difference, but we will see overloaded ERs because ERs can't turn away people who come. So if you don't have insurance, you can't go to the doctor, you're going to go to the ER. So that definitely is going to create some stresses and strains. That we had in the past, but our population is getting bigger. I think the way we think about healthcare as a result of Obamacare has changed. I say we as a nation. The idea of socialized medicine, which has been around in many other countries and which we moved into with Obamacare, is that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. In the past, in the United States, access to healthcare has been considered a privilege. So now we're going to have to redefine that. And I believe that will impact your practices. I don't know exactly how, but this is what you need to understand, is these things will change the number of shifts that you work, where you work, job opportunities that are available. There's going to, every time things like this happen, especially at the large national scale, it does impact our practice. So that's why it's important for us to be aware of those changes, and not just the changes, but the implications. I appreciated, Ryan, your response, because you talked about the implications of change. Do you see that as a problem with you moving to Southern California? Are there concerns about your own health care there, or do you see that as a great career move? How is this change, do you think, going to impact your new practice?
I think the biggest thing is just, you're right, a lot of the cost is going to get pushed off onto the taxpayers, and in California, they're more than happy to push that cost onto the taxpayers. So I do believe that it will affect, the cost of my healthcare will go up because they'll probably add a tax to healthcare saying that you're going to be paying more so that you can help all these other people that don't have it because you have this job. And I don't know, as a nurse, after I've gone through this program, I'm really torn on healthcare because I feel like I've grown more towards the fact that I really do believe that healthcare should be accessible to everybody, but I'm split because I don't feel like I should pay for it. So it's hard. It's kind of like this moral dilemma, and as nurses, we're required to help everybody, whether they have money or not, no matter what lifestyle they live. And so I think that that's something that I'm going to have to come to terms with and just deal with it with a smile on my face.
I think you're probably right. Thank you. Good comments. Okay. The outcomes, most of you are primarily interested in decision-making skills. Does that resonate? Do you feel like you're good decision makers?
Depends on the situation.
Okay. Do any of you have a set process in which you make decisions, or do you let emotion, do you make them by emotion? Do you count on somebody else's advice? How is it that you make your decisions? Anybody?
Well, I like to talk things out and like look at both sides, like if I do or don't make the decision, pros and cons. But sometimes that can be a bad thing because it takes more time than I sometimes should have. And also, I have recently found being married that my husband sees it as like I'm challenging him and like not agreeing with his decision. And so sometimes there can cause not like disagreements. So I'm really not disagreeing. I just want to know the whole picture so I can make the best decision. But I don't think that's the most effective way.
Okay. It is good. It is good to look at both sides if you can, if there are both sides. But your husband thinks that perhaps you're challenging him. Now let's take a group. Let's take your whole table. You guys have to come to a joint decision. Savannah, you're not going to have to worry about just one person who might feel, that perhaps you're challenging, or that they just simply don't agree, and you're going to have 6 different perspectives now. Do you see where it starts to become even more problematic, or take more skill? Maybe it's not a problem if you have fabulous skills, but those skills have to be developed. They don't come intuitively. Anybody else? So Savannah likes to. She is a. Oh, of course it went out. Essentially a participative, if I can say the word, type leader probably. Is that how you would? Who among you might be an autocratic leader, and why would you be an autocratic leader? Do you know what that means? Do you remember in your readings? What is an autocratic leader?
Dictator.
Yeah, that can be it. So, do any of you see yourself as is that your style?
Depends.
Okay, depends. What does it depend on?
The group.
Yeah. If I don't trust someone, I'm gonna make the decision. No. You say doesn't count.
For your honesty.
I think that's a question.
Well, it's true. I mean, like in previous groups, like throughout schooling, some people are just lazy and you're like, okay, you do this, this, and this, because they don't think for themselves. So it's like some people just need to be directed. And you can see it even in society. Some people just want a leader because they don't want to think for themselves. So depends on the group.
Okay. Is that valid? Arista?
I think one of the best types of leaders is one that kind of encourages people to self-think, not like, I don't know, giving them the opportunity, because like some people aren't really that self-thinker, but I think that a good leader is one that motivates them and to be that self-thinker, because I feel that if you kind of discredit some people, like, because sometimes bias can come into play where you just, oh, that person's not going to make a good decision, so I'll just make it. But I think you have to take it, like, don't discredit anybody, because sometimes they might have, like, a really good idea that you would miss, and that's why I discredit them.
I think you're exactly right. The best thing to do in an ideal situation, of course, is to get input from everybody, because then you're going to have buy-in. Have you heard about spitting in people's soup? Do you know about that?
Oh.
Oh, is that where you spit in someone's
That's why you
soup?
take.
So why would you spit in somebody's soup?
Because you want to get back at them without them knowing about it.
So essentially, where that came from is in the restaurant business. When customers come in and they're picky and they don't like their soup because it's too hot or because it's too cold, and they demand that it be taken back to the kitchen. Goes back to the kitchen and the employees spit in the soup, and that's payback essentially. And they bring it out. It's nice and hot. It's just how the customer wanted it, and the employees just smiling and happy as can be while they eat their hot soup now that they just spit in. So it's disgusting, isn't it? But that's what you have to remember is as a leader, you know, if you don't, you can't always have 100% buy-in, but if you don't have general buy-in, somebody could spit in your soup. Now, I want to go back to what Emma and Alex talked about. Are there some reasons why we would want to have autocratic leadership, and what would they be? When would you want to have autocratic leadership? Okay, Savannah, speak up. Emergency situation. If somebody's calling a code, do you want an autocratic leader at that moment? Absolutely. If there's a disaster, do you want an autocratic leader at that moment? There are really good reasons to have autocratic leaders at the moment, but if you're autocratic leader the whole time, that can create difficulty too. You could have high turnover again, you could have, you know, spitting in your soup, those kinds of things. So you're going to want to focus the appropriate kind of leadership for the right time. And that one of the things that implies is that you make as corrective decisions as possible. So I think that was pretty high on the list too. Maybe it wasn't on the list. Yeah, so that was the first one for making decisions. And then the second one, I'm getting ahead of myself, is to utilize service, advocacy, teaching, and leadership to promote nurse consumer relationships. So we're going to talk about decision making. I'm going to let you choose. We've got several options of things that we can do today to maybe solidify that learning. So, so that's one. Another is the customer service. What did you think about the chapter on customer service? Were there any surprises in there? I'm going to throw something out. Nursing, most years, is rated by the Gallup polls as the most trusted profession. Why is it that people are going to trust you and probably trust you now? I expect that even as precepted students in the hospital, you probably found a high level of trust with your patients, would you say? Did it scare you just a little bit? Did you sometimes think, I'm not quite ready for all this trust? They're asking me what to do and how to take care of, you know, certain things, and they trust you. So how do you meet that trust?
Don't lie to them.
Okay.
If you don't know something, it's better to say, you know what, I don't know, I'm gonna look it up. I'll find out for you, but if you lie, it's way harder to go back and backtrack after that. So just be honest and say, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out for you.
Jamie, that's wonderful. That's exactly right. That does help the trust, and it also helps with the customer relationship. What if you make a mistake? What do you do to keep the trust and to provide good customer service? Alex?
So I had a clinical where there was a mistake made, and I apologized. And then I was told never to do that again. And so I was from the nurses and the charge nurse, and I was like, well, if we make a mistake, shouldn't they know about it? And so it's kind of torn. You want the patient to see everything that's good, but if they don't recognize something that's bad, don't tell them about it. And so it's kind of interesting given that experience and how I've practiced since then. It's really kind of a game what you present to them so you look good and they trust you so that they can be taken care of the best way you know how.
I'm glad you brought that up. That is an excellent dilemma and situation that I think it would be important for us to discuss today. So let's talk about a couple of things. Alex made a mistake. What was his role? He was a student, right? And you said that the patient didn't realize that you had made a mistake. Is that
Well,
right?
it wasn't. It was both the nurse and I.
Okay.
So
Alex
there
was
was
your nurse.
through the process. There was was one mistake, but it was through, and so I apologize for it. Yeah,
Did the patient realize the mistake had been made?
unless they were trained in medicine.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay. Okay. Do you mind if we use you as a case study for a minute, Alex?
Sure.
So, if you're the nurse and you have a student with you, and something happens, and again, I'm not sure what the severity was, but it appears that probably the patient didn't understand. Would you want your student going and apologizing to the patient? Now, probably in terms of integrity and honesty, that's the right thing to do. But if you're the nurse, do you want the student to apologize? Okay, why? Speak loud so everybody can hear.
I said the nurse needed to take ownership for it because the student at that point is the nurse's responsibility. Even if it was the student or if it was the nurse, it doesn't really matter. If we made this mistake, like the student is kind of practicing as a head at that point.
Yes, Hannah.
This kind of reminds me of a question we had on our HESI. It was like the CNA or UAP changed or did a bit back for a patient and like the curtains opened. And it asked like how the nurse should respond and what's the first thing the nurse should do. And the answer was to apologize immediately before talking to the UAP or anything else. So I don't know. That's what.
Do you think that's the correct answer?
I got that one wrong.
Yeah,
Did you want the UAP to go apologize?
No,
All they're supposed to recommend.
Yeah, it's supposed to,
To
Yeah.
reprimand?
you're supposed to apologize immediately.
And then go
So, yes, Randy.
When I was on the third floor at Vermont, I think it was last semester or 2 semesters ago, anyways, doesn't matter. But there was a nurse that hadn't undone the little clamp on the IV, that little teeny tiny one right by the J-loop. And she hadn't undone that, and so his ID kept beeping and she just kept restarting it, and he was getting really frustrated. He was like, I know that something's wrong, just like fix it. And she's like, there's nothing there. She didn't really check. So my nurse and I, we heard some beeping, so we went and checked. And he was just irate. He was like, I have been watching this IV bag in the mirror for the last 30 minutes and it has not gone down at all. I've talked to my nurse. Something needs to happen. I'm not getting the medication I need to be getting. And so we went down, we did the eye trace thing, and we found that the little clamp was not undone. And we were like, we are so sorry that happened to you. And he like calmed down immediately. Just the fact that we were like, I'm sorry that happened. That was unfortunate, but we're gonna take care of it. He calmed down immediately, and he was just like, oh, okay, and then he was fine. Like, he was really happy to talk to us while we were fixing everything. So I think if you take, and it wasn't our fault, it wasn't our mistake, but the fact that someone was apologizing to him, I think it was good for him just to see, oh, we are human, but we're gonna take care of it. So I thought it was good.
Very good point. An immediate apology, because you and your,
A key thing in what they said was, we are so sorry that this happened to you. You didn't assign blame. You just apologized that an unfortunate incident happens. That's really key. Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's perfect, and that's exactly where I was headed, and I'm glad that you had it already formed. Thank you. That's exactly right, because you guys apologized on behalf of the institution. You took institutional responsibility for an error that had occurred. Now, he was warm, he calmed down. I suspect he was probably still a little bit cool to the nurse, the actual nurse when she came in, simply because. But if she apologized too, and just, it probably would smooth things over. But an apology is really important. I just want to point out that a lot of times, almost always, the apology needs to come from the right person. So Alex, I think that that's a wonderful thing to apologize. Probably in this case, it would have been better for the nurse to apologize, or the nurse manager, depending on if it was serious enough, and they probably have more experience, so they know what should be apologized for. Again, if it's something that clearly happened, and the patient is aware, certainly an apology needs to occur. One of the reasons, Alex, that probably they told you not to apologize is because you have to be careful how you apologize, and that's what Sister Forward just pointed out. If you say, I'm so sorry I did that, it was completely my fault, I'll do anything I can to make it better, you're right for a lawsuit. Remember our legal and ethical issue less than a few weeks ago. And so you have to be really careful how you apologize. And so, as she said, and as Randy said, and I'm glad you remembered that and shared that so well with us, I am so sorry that this happened to you. We'll look into the matter, we'll do what we can, because right there, that's going to cut out probably 60% of the lawsuits that are going to happen. If it was something really egregious, in which damage was done, disability followed, those kinds of things, that's a little bit trickier, but the lawsuit is going to probably happen anyway. At that point, it's way beyond you, but you would be surprised how much customer dissatisfaction and the threat of lawsuit can be decreased if you appropriately apologize. So that is fabulous customer service. What else? What other kinds of good customer service do we want to see happen? Yes, Jamie.
One of the ladies that we took care of, she had a really bad day with a physical therapist. So when we got there that night, she was really upset, really, really upset. And she had told us that. So we kind of spent a minute in there during rounds and things like that. And then after everybody was good, I went back in there. And then we started talking, and she had this huge rat's nest. I mean, I've never seen one that big in her hair. And she just was feeling bad. You can tell she was just feeling bad. So we started trying to brush it, and so bad. Anyway, so we were just in there, and she said, I just wish you could cut it. And my nurse, she said, I can cut it. And she's like, really? And she said, yeah, I can cut hair. And she said, I need to check with the charge nurse. And so she went out and talked to the charge nurse, and he's like, I don't care. If she wants it, you can cut it. Is she with it enough to say, yeah, I want my hair cut? All the questions. Anyway, so we, her hair was down to her butt, by the way. And anyway, so we put a trash bag over her shoulders so that it would catch all that hair, and we cut it up to her shoulders. And then we gave her a bath, we washed her hair, we did all this stuff, and all the while we're talking to her and just making her feel good. And at the end, when we got her all tucked into bed, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning by now, she just said, this is the best day. And it was kind of like, we turned a situation that sucked for her, and it could have been her bad attitude in the first place about physical therapy. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or the physical therapist could have been being a butt to her. I don't know. But we didn't even address that. We just said, we're sorry that you had a bad day, and then we were trying to figure out a way to make it better. And so then when we took her in, she's like, this was the best day. It was almost like all of the other crap that happened that day, she forgot about because she felt so good when we were done.
Cared for.
Yeah. So anyway, it was good.
I suspect it was even more than the bath and the haircut. It was that somebody cared about her and somebody spent that much time helping her to feel good. That was good. That's awesome. Thank you for sure. I lost my train of thought because I was listening so intently.
I tend to do that to people.
I don't know if you want to keep talking about this, but just a quick comment about that. I thought of, I think in certain situations it's a lot better to just listen and not have to listen to come up with a response and just listen. You know what I mean? Like if you're shut up. Stop listening. No, but like to listen and not come up with a response from it.
Like not try to solve the problems, but
Yeah,
just trying to listen.
like actually understand what they're saying and not already be thinking about what you want to say back.
You're exactly right. That is a therapeutic communication technique that I assume that you learned in psych. Did you go through communication techniques? And that definitely is one of them. If you can actively listen, and actively listening can be hard, because I think we're just wired. Like I said, I lost my train of thought because I was listening to Jamie. But if we can actively listen without thinking of a response and what we're going to say, we're way better listeners. And I think that does make a lot of difference to patients. I got my train of thought back. And another aspect that and again, I don't know where you went for your psych nursing, but psych patients, have you noticed they get really mad at people with generally no good reason? You know, they'll just blow up and they'll yell at you and they'll get in your face this close and they'll swear at you and they'll hit you if they can. And, you know, anyway, you really have to watch those volatile emotions in psych and be prepared to keep yourself safe. But one of the things that you have to learn if you work in psych is you cannot take it personally. You know, it could be Kara, it could be me, it could be Sister Forbush, and if you've got a mad psych patient, they don't care who they hit. Kara, it's not because you have brown eyes, and they don't like your brown eyes, you know, or they don't like me because I've got a white top on, and that reminds them of a doctor. It's just because, whatever. And so that's what you have to do all through nursing is you really can't take the anger personally, because if you do, you're going to burn out. You know, if every day you go to work and you get your feelings hurt or you feel defensive because a patient yelled at you or a family yelled at you, pretty soon you're going to decide nursing just isn't worth it anymore. Are you starting to realize that already? There are a lot of things that you have to leave at the facility door and leave it there, and then when you come. How does that help you create better customer service if you cannot take things personally? Arista, and then who else's hand did I see? Jamie's.
So I had an experience where I had working as a CNA in healthcare, and I went to this lady's house, and she was just like, "Why are you here? I don't want you here. Do not come back." Like, and I was just like, what? I like was so upset, and I was like, I do not want to go back to this lady's house so bad, and I was just so distraught. And then the next day I went back, and her son was there, and we got to talking and things, and the attitude of this woman was totally different. And she was just like, at the end of that shift, because I worked the night shifts with her, she was just like, "Thank you so much for being here. Please, like, I hope you come back and things." And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And so come to find out, I was the first caregiver that she had ever had in her home. And she had sundowners, so she really didn't understand why I was there. So like she thought I was some burglar, to be honest. And so then as I got to know the situation, and I was able to I realized that you shouldn't take things personal because sometimes you don't know the whole story and things. And so that was just a good example to me that, you know, sometimes people are not all there in the head, and sometimes they're in the hospitals and they are not themselves because they're on drugs, like on medications and things, and sometimes they get irritable and things, and sometimes they just need somebody to lash out on because they just got like the news that their family member had died or something. And so I think that that's something that we need to always remember.
I think that is a really important point because we do make assumptions, don't we? We make assumptions that the patients are just like us, and they should be smart, they should be aware, they should be they should be empathetic, they should be the things that we are. And there is a difference in culture. So thank you. That's a really good point, Jamie.
The thing I try to remember is we're seeing these people on their worst day, not their best day. And I had a lady I was taking care of, and she called me some sweet names. And I took care of her for 4 days. And, you know, I just come out and I kind of giggle because I was like, that's awesome, right? I just think it's funny. I mean, I just think I gotta blow it off, right? But after the 4th day, she was really nice. But what that told me was she was feeling better, because the first few days with all the finger pointing and the name calling, finger, this is what she did every time she called me a name, she'd go like this. But
The rat.
I don't know what kind of establishment you guys are running here. But anyway, like after those days, you know, and I just go out and be like, dude, that was so funny. 'Cause you have to blow it off. It's their bad day. I feel like crap when I don't feel good. I'm grumpy, you know, blah blah blah. But by the 4th day, she was really nice, and she's like, I'm so glad you're here, you know. But it just kind of told me, like, you know, it's a good sign. They were kind of a beast, and then they were kind of nice. They were starting to feel better. But if my BFF treated me this way, I would be devastated. But I can handle it. I got thick skin when it comes to patients because I get a lot of comic relief out of it afterwards. I mean, they make wonderful. You can write a book. Probably I could, but I don't like to write things. But anyway, I just try to remember that
Never seen the class.
Yeah. I am good for stuff like that. That's why you guys kept me around this long. But anyway, I just remember that. I just remember that it's their bad. This is bad. This is not like we're seeing them in happy, they're doing awesome. We're seeing them when they feel like crap. Their body's not working right. They're frustrated and tired, and so yeah.
That's exactly right. Now, we've talked about some of the bedside characteristics that you need. And these are really important as you graduate and you go into practice. I'm going to have you take a jump now. I want you to consider yourself in 10 years. So I'm giving you a little cheat sheet here. These are some of the characteristics that you're going to need as a successful nurse leader. And do you remember last week when Sister Forbush brought up the AONE characteristics of a nurse leader, and I think communication was like right in the middle. Remember the diagram she showed us with kind of the petals around it? And so communication is a given. I tried to look for some others on top of that, and I'd like to have you, is there any things that you are surprised about, that you disagree with, that you don't quite understand why this would be an important attribute to be successful? Now remember, there are all kinds of nurse leaders, but not all of them are successful. So that's why I want you, and 10 years is really a stretch. I expect most of you to be in a nurse leader position in 5 or less. It's just, if there's turnover, good people rise to the top, and so probably all of you will become leaders before you think you're ready. And so that's why I want to look at some of these skills. Any comments? Why do you think you need a nurse leader? Why do we need you to be emotionally stable? Sounds like a dumb question. All right, we don't have to answer that. That's kind of a given, but there is a very good reason for it. Women in this class, I don't recall if I've told you this before. I may have earlier in the semester, but it was probably to another group, another cohort. But I really want to point out that with leadership, there are some gender-based biases, and I want you to be aware of those. Did I talk to you about this before?
No.
I think there was something about asking for raises that we talked about one class, and that guys would be like, oh yeah, of course I'm gonna ask for a raise. And then the women were like, oh.
Yeah, that was the Margaret Neal video. I hope you all got to watch that because, again, that really does talk about some gender differences, and we want you to have the skills. But let's just talk about emotional stability and emotion. What happens when a woman cries in front of a group or in front of somebody you don't know well? What, particularly if it's a male, what do you think their response is? Even if they don't say it to you, what are they thinking in their head?
Broke some dirt in.
Emotional wreck. Just what I expected from a woman. Weak. Okay, when a guy is in front of a group or, you know, people he doesn't know well, and he becomes emotional, what do maybe even the other guys think, but women think? What do they think about a guy when he becomes sensitive? Oh, sensitive. Guys know
She must be saying something really
brave, you know, he's
Yeah.
powerful
It's
because
appropriate.
his emotions can show. And so, guys, it's really okay if you become emotional occasionally. Ladies, it is not, and I'm sorry about that. I thought maybe I saw a hand over there. And so with emotional stability, this is when, if you're in a situation that's just overwhelming, and I can promise you, in the field of nursing, there are many days when you go home and you cry, or you shout, or you hit the walls, or whatever you need to do. But you really need to be careful about expressing emotion. You've got to keep control of your emotion, because if you lose it, you've lost some credibility already. If you only do it once, never do it again. Sometimes that, you know, she had a bad day that day, but if you do it habitually, you're going to lose your credibility and you will no longer be a successful nursing leader. Would you agree with that, Sister Forbush?
Absolutely. I think one exception, you probably were going to get to this, but I think one exception is it's okay when something bad happens, when a patient passes away or something like that, and it's okay to show emotion then, especially with the family, because it's okay to let them know you care.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of times when something like that happens, your emotion is controllable. And so again, you know, if you need to make a point and you need to raise your voice, but you can do it in a controlled manner, again, that shows leadership and authority. It's the loss of control, okay? All right, that I just wanted to point that out because I think that's something really important that you need to know. Physical endurance, you know, that's kind of a given, but we forget about that sometimes. You really have to have physical endurance to be able to be a successful leader. You've got to be able to respond quickly. You can't take a long time to make decisions, but that essentially that's like working a muscle. You have to be able to make good decisions, because if you make quick knee-jerk reactions, you're toast. That's, you know, you're going to lose again credibility very quickly. So you need to respond quickly and helpfully and accurately. Respect. You know, that is a problem that I've seen over and over again. You know, who can quote the scripture? It's been our sad experience that when a man is given a little authority, who can do the rest of that?
It's in Doctrine and Covenants.
It is. And it, you know, it's been my sad experience, and it will be your sad experience too. And so one of the best ways to offset that is make it part of your personality that you genuinely respect, and you can show that respect to other people, regardless of how they disagree. I heard an interesting story very recently about one of our leaders here at BYU, Idaho. He was paying tribute to President Clark, and he said one of the things that probably has been most helpful as an administrator here, and I love President Clark for, is I've had a habit for years and years that when I heard an idea that I thought was stupid, I rolled my eyes. I probably learned this from my mother because it was something we did in our family, so I didn't think anything of it. But I said President Clark, but I meant President Gilbert, excuse me. That transition, yeah, has been hard. President Gilbert took him aside and said to him, regardless of whether you respect the person, if you roll your eyes when they say something that you don't agree with, that denotes a lack of respect. And I want you to get to the point where you have enough respect for everything about other people that regardless of what they say, you're too respectful to roll your eyes. And he said that was a changing point in my career. And so remember those kinds of things. What about your body language? You know, as a leader, people watch you all the time and they make assumptions about you. And so if the one thing they can say is, I know that they respect me, you're going to have a lot better path. as a leader. Is there any of these others that you want to talk about for a minute? I think they're all pretty explanatory. Alex and then Evan.
Well, I was just wondering if you wanted us to read the scripture.
Yes, I would. That would be
Is that
awesome.
what you're
Please
gonna
do.
do?
You got it.
Okay. It's in DNC 121, verse 39, and it says, "We have learned by sad experience that it is the nature and disposition of all men
And women.
and women. As soon as they get a little authority, as they suppose, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion."
Pretty straightforward, isn't it? And I know you've all heard it before, but remember, because there are a lot of perks with being a leader. You're trusted, you're looked up to, you just get to do a lot of things that you didn't before, but make sure that you still maintain those ties of respect and friendship and friendliness with your staff. Okay? Oh my goodness, our time is about up. The pizza is here, doesn't that smell awesome? That's why I had to
Still
step
with the
away. Really quickly, it looks like Greg isn't here yet, and I think you're gonna love your presentation. Each of you guys are a group, and we're going to talk about group and team leading. One of you need to be the group leader. Here are all the roles. Choose who's going to be the group leader and the group leader. I want you to assign all of the other roles.
Oh wait, actually,
The facilitator, the group member, the recorder, and the timekeeper. Okay.
Definitely not that.
You guys have a leader?
You're the leader, dude.
Who's the leader? Sarah? Who's your leader? Who's your leader?
As the leader, I designate you as the leader, and I designate myself as the timekeeper. The most work. It's like the other secretary did. The guy has the busiest job ever.
Now, here's your task.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. I got this.
You guys get going. Here's your task numbers. They're gonna complete this quiz in 3 minutes.
All right, Hannah, I'm gonna ask you to be the
Take minutes.
I'm the facilitator. I need to support.
So you're gonna take minutes of the meeting, and
Here's your
distribute
task.
meeting minutes
Quiz
to all
that you
members.
guys need to
Did you
do.
get that? So you can take notes about what we're talking about. You have questions?
Maybe group member /
Timekeepers, they're gonna
You can go member and timekeeper.
So I
When Alex
just say what time you're starting.
Yeah, so you need to fill that out.
So is that like my class?
Okay, so you're gonna do is you're gonna be taking notes. You can distribute. I know. Watching that. I can do it. Keep it to me. I'll do anything. You need to help me move? No. I'll buy pizza. I'll take 12 hours for pizza. Nope, timekeeper's over here.
Yeah, but she records it.
I know, but make sure you confirm your time so make sure it's the time. Oh, we just have to check which one we think that goes. So this is this.
So everyone to contribute to this.
And it's facilitated.
Am I supposed to do it?
Yeah, that's how we do it. That's how they do it. Just make the marks. Make the marks. Yeah.
Be like, Hannah, you're taking notes.
And now he's.
Yeah,
everyone's.
No, offer ideas that might be.
Oh, I see what you're
Right, they all, like the group discussion.
So maybe him saying,
So read the group responsibilities and mark who, we should have just read the directions.
yeah. That's fine.
Ryan's just repeating everything.
That's why I'm confused. But we're not.
Okay, so this also gives.
Way to go.
We're just.
Conducting active, creating active
Everyone.
Report progress to the.
help leading group members to resolve the conflict, that's facility.
Report project solution. And then everybody, that would be great. Everyone. Okay, everyone will get trained on it. Go, guys. Write down my.
Keep group members working in the same direction. Group members working in the same direction.
I guess.
I just support the leader. I'm also keeping everybody on task.
I think
I'm really the undercover.
I think the leader is the task maker. And
You're
the
the member, you're the secret member.
We got this thing and you're like,
Correct.
you're assigning groups.
Where the leader's
Yeah, I was thinking
I didn't know that.
Are you guys going through 3 minutes? Not yet. Okay, let me know.
I think everybody.
I didn't know where you
I think that's to the leader. Progress to the leader.
Oh, is that what it's saying?
Yeah, 2 blank. This is like the most. And I go on this job.
Right down what happens during
Help facilitate.
Good job.
So
We're done. Everybody, let's talk about this for a minute. We'll go through the answers. See how accurate you are as well as how speedy. How many of you completed within your 3 minutes? Okay, all but one group. Short amount of time. 2:35, 2:45, 2:38.
Well, I don't know when we started.
Okay, you guys are the winners.
You can say
The winner for that, you get to have pizza.
So we don't have to.
Yeah, well, it's not about how fast. That's right, you're right. Well, now we'll find out the quality of time and how well whether you scored or not. Okay, so, group responsibility. Whose responsibility is it to encourage everyone to contribute to decision making?
Yeah.
Facilitator, and who else? Leader. Those are the 2 correct answers. Okay. Maintain documents related to the group's work. Who would do that? Reporter. Okay. Offer ideas about the potential cause of a problem. Who would do that? Everyone. Excellent. Conduct the group meetings. Who's going to conduct? Leader. Just the leader. Okay, so the leader is ultimately responsible responsible, so they'll conduct, but then a facilitator, okay. Let's see, where am I? Be an active presence in the group meetings. Who should be an active presence?
Everyone?
Everyone. Help feuding group members to resolve their conflict. Who would that be? Facilitator, correct. Practice according to your ground rules that were decided upon by the group. Who does that? Everyone. Keep the group members working in the same direction.
Facilitator?
Okay, the facilitator and?
Group leader?
Leader. Okay, go. Announce the time a lot when the time is up. How are your timekeepers? Did they do a good job of that? Isn't it nice to have a timekeeper because we so often go over, and so when you lead groups, remember that a timekeeper really is a valuable asset. Okay, complete assignments by designated deadlines. Whose responsibility?
Everyone's.
Everyone. Focus participants on the goals of a group activity. So as soon as you guys finish your quiz, I noticed the conversations went all over the place. Whose responsibility while the group is in session to keep you on focus?
Facilitator.
Okay, facilitator and?
The group leader?
The leader.
And I think you did a
Both,
good job.
yes. Okay, report progress to that, and then that, I left that blank because it could be, whoever your responsible person who assigned you. So who is supposed to report progress?
Wait. No, wait, you mean you
Your
report
report to
progress
the
to
leader.
To the,
leader?
sorry, I should have put blank, blank, blank and maybe put some examples. I just realized that I didn't finish that. And so what I meant, you can change your answer if you need to, is the administration or whoever it is that created the purpose of this group. Who should report progress to them?
The group leader?
Yes.
So we got it right.
Project. Okay, who should be supporting the solutions that you come to as recommendations when you're outside of the group? Everybody. Why?
But a nice suit. If you make a decision you don't agree with.
You certainly could. And so here's the thing, when you make a decision as a group, and you all know this, I think, but let me just reinforce it. You can have all the argument, all the discussion you want, but once the group decision is made, it is your responsibility to support that both internally and externally. Okay, write down what happens during the group meetings. Whose responsibility? Reporter. And attend training on the latest quality or other tools. If there are training related to your topic, who should attend that?
Everyone?
Everyone, okay. Quality. How many got them all right? How many missed one question? 2 questions? 3 questions? 3? Okay, your reward is pizza.
First.
How many missed 4 questions? 5? Okay, 6? 7? Okay. So, do you think it's because you were hurrying too fast? Was there anything about your group that maybe you could have done better, or is it just? Can you talk to us about that?
I think maybe we weren't timed and we could have gone over it.
Okay. So the time added some stress.
It did, we finished before, but it still was like a minute and a half. And so,
Okay, Kara.
I also kind of was going by, as we were going through them, I was looking at this sheet, and, these specific questions matched with, these roles.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that one says that right there, but I didn't think, well, it's the responsibility of all members to do that as well.
Good
So,
point.
I was
Good
just going
point.
extra quick.
Were we supposed to look at the paper? Like that?
It wasn't. It was simply a guide, so you
Oh.
would each know what your responsibilities were. But I think that was not a bad idea at all to be looking to see how they.
Because after we started looking at the sheet where we were checking things off, I was like, wait, is this the answer sheet?
No, no, it's
so
not.
we
the
stopped
answer
looking at it.
sheet. It was more to define what your roles
Okay.
were. Any ideas from your group? Stress of the situation, the time.
I think for the most part, we just didn't realize that it would be more than one of You know what I mean? It was either all or none.
Okay, got it. So maybe the directions were unclear. That definitely would be a challenge to the group. Okay, well, all of the group leaders stand up. Whoever was the group leader at your table.
Holy, what a
A round of
surprise.
applause. Facilitator, let's see who your co-pilot was. Facilitator. Oh, geez. Okay, and then who was the recorder? Go ahead, you can. Who was the recorder? You guys probably didn't get the workout that we went, but that's great. Let's see, timekeeper. Who were the timekeepers?
Obviously, the military.
You have 4 minutes. I'm going to give each of you, I want you to use your same group, so same group, so you're the same facilitators. Let's talk about 4 minutes, and I want you to solve a problem, and here are your problem-solving steps. We started to talk about that, but here you're going to get to use, if you would like, some of the actual steps for making decisions that work well.
I would say it's mostly everything's one.
That's a safe.
I see. No, but they come into the ICU a lot because usually ICUs are just close, like close on, you know, especially most of the time. Elder Nelson. Like the throat stuff, like scalpels. Don't worry, I can fix it. It's job security.
Good problem solved. Is it important? So I want to do something about it. And I call it. I would say yes. That's one.
It doesn't really say how my. So I wish I had like.
Well, you weren't happy being a member.
And you can always go.
Yeah, they would like to.
Okay, guys, about 30 seconds, but I'm sure the timekeeper knows that.
I don't even. Sometimes the question.
guys, are you ready? What I would like you to do now, would you say this is like a group version of speed dating?
Yes.
How do you like these speed groups? I hope you find them effective though, when you, instead of one person trying to run the group, isn't it nice to spread that responsibility out and have different people help? I hope that you're finding it does make you more effective. Okay, how about if we start with this table? Would you tell us what your decision, what the problem was, and then what your decision was?
So the problem was that a person, do we all have different papers?
Yes, everybody's is different.
Oh, okay. So the problem was that you notice one person in the nursing team is really upset and behind on their work, and so you want to do something to help them because they're obviously upset. And so our decision was that somebody should help them, right? Was that our decision? Okay. And we decided that each member of the nursing team, even though they're probably really busy too, if they each just take one little task to help that person, like taking a patient's vital signs, or if you delegate something to a UAP, then that person would feel like they're not as busy. And it would improve patient safety too, because that would be an issue.
Good, thank you, good thoughts. Okay, Anna, I think you're the leader of your group.
Yeah, so we had a new surgeon in our OR. He's only been there and he only operates once a month. And they call a timeout procedure, but then the surgeons start shouting out orders and directions without the procedure, and they just get started. Well, all the nurses are pretty upset about this because they realize how important it is. And so, is this a problem or a decision? And we said it was a problem because mainly and it says, is it important? And yes, timeout procedures are very important because they correctly identify the patient, which operating site it is on, and everything else. So if they don't have those and they do the wrong leg, that's lawsuit waiting to happen, or whatever else. And so, do they do something about it? Yes, we do something about it and so it talks about the lead nurse going and talking to the surgeon. And then, do we have authority to do anything? We don't necessarily have authority to do anything, but we can still talk and discuss this with the surgeon and discuss the opinions of the nurses. And if he doesn't agree and he keeps doing this, then I would say that I would probably go above and be like, hey, this guy's not following procedures of the hospital. And then other questions are like, do we delegate this to someone else? And no, because you're the lead nurse. So, and the benefits from solving it is avoiding possible lawsuits for doing the wrong procedure or on the wrong patient or whatever else.
Exactly. Besides avoiding a lawsuit, think about your conscience if you didn't do what you were supposed to do and a person had the wrong leg amputated. Can you imagine? Yeah. Okay. Andy, I think you're the team leader of your group. You're the facilitator. Are you the facilitator or the delegate? Sure. Okay, awesome. Go ahead.
The situation is that you observe a confrontation at the desk area where a physical therapist has just reprimanded a nurse in front of others for not having toileted a patient prior to her scheduled time to go to physical therapy. The nurse is upset and embarrassed because she has been busy with an emergency. She later states that she has experienced this side of the therapist before. She decides it is not worth discussing with him because he never listens anyways. So we decided that this is a problem because, it's one thing if it's a one-time occurrence and somebody's just like really frustrated. But the fact that this is like a repeat thing, he's probably doing it to other people. And this, as nurses, we're supposed to collaborate with other fields within the hospital. And if somebody's yelling at us, we can't effectively communicate unless we're like really calm and cool-headed people, So we felt like it was really important because this is involving patient care, you know, I was in an emergency, I couldn't do this. My patient, the emergency patient was a priority, not taking the patient to the bathroom. And physical therapists can walk people, so that he could have taken them to the bathroom or got a CNA to do it if he really didn't want to. Do I want to do something about it? Yes, we want to solve the problem because, once again, it's no fun to be yelled at in front of everybody. That's not very courteous of him to do, and it's unprofessional. And then, do we have the authority to do anything? We decided that we should probably talk to him, say, hey, you know, I felt like that was really hard on me when you yelled at me, and just something along those lines. And if it doesn't change, you need to talk to your nurse leader or charge nurse, because if people aren't collaborating well and working together in the hospital, things are gonna fall apart, and patients are gonna fall through the cracks, and things are gonna happen. So do I have the knowledge, interest, time, and resources to deal with it? Honestly, just the time. It's not gonna take very long to be like, hey, can you be a little more patient? I don't know, I'd say it in a different way, but and you have the resources, you know how to problem solve, and you know how to communicate well with others, so you do have the resources. And then can I delegate it to someone else? We thought that you first should be like, hey, you know, like I feel like this should change, and then if it doesn't happen, then you can delegate it to the charge nurse or nurse leader. And then what benefits will be derived from solving it? Well, you won't get yelled at, so that's always good. And then I think it'll just help because if your patient's there and somebody's yelling at you, you know, that makes them think like, oh, they're an idiot, you know, I don't think they're gonna take real good care of me, so it'll make you seem more professional as a nurse, and it'll make you feel good and everybody feel good, so.
That's a great summary. Can I just add one thing? What about morale? When you have somebody who shouts at others, I think that really is a morale buster that's important to try to stop. So that you did a wonderful job of starting. Remind me of your name. Adrian. Thank you. Go ahead.
So what we had was a code was called. There's a nurse in the room. I think we're supposed to be in the room, and then a temporary physician and a nurse from the emergency department run into the room. The nurse gets there first, and she's getting information about what's going on from the nurse that's already there. But the physician comes in then, and it just starts like barking orders about like really getting any idea of what's going on. So like with this situation, there's a lot of things that can be taken into consideration. In some instances, it might be good that happened, but in some, it might be bad. Like they might spend more money trying to treat something that's ineffective with this situation, or they might be sued for doing wrong treatment. There's a lot of things that can go on. So we said it's a problem, and that it's important to get an assessment and get your information before you start treatment.
Awesome. Thank you. Good job. Good group work. I hope this is a good way, an effective way for you to practice just a little bit, assigning roles to groups, and good job on decision making versus problem solving. So, all right, I am very happy to introduce Greg Hale to you. Greg is actually a graduate of, is it BYU-I or Rick's?
Ricks.
He works for IASIS Healthcare, and I'm going to really let you continue your introduction from here.
All right. So yeah, I work for IASIS Healthcare. Yeah. Basically what I do, I go around to classrooms of graduating nurses. Congratulations, by the way. When do you all graduate? Hopefully.
Wait a second, I got it.
So my wife is a nurse, and we were married when she went through nursing school. So I get it. It's a big deal. So don't be proud of yourselves. But what I do, I'm not here to I'm a recruiter, but I'm not here to recruit you. What I do is I talk about resumes, interviews, applications, all those types of things, just to help you guys get ready. But before we do that, first I have to apologize. they screwed up the drink order and sent 2 Mountain Dews and 2 Pepsis. And I know caffeine is Satan and stuff. I apologize. I did order here it says 7 hours Sprite or something like that, so I do apologize. You know I love you. I'd rather have you eating while I'm answering questions, so will somebody say a blessing and then we'll dish up and then start answering questions?
I'd like to.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the food, grateful for the company and for the collaboration. We ask you to please bless the food, that it will do us no harm and that it will strengthen us and give us the energy that we need. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Since you said the prayer, you do a prayer.
I brought a bunch of stuff, so help yourself to whatever else is there.
Camera. I can wait for you if you're purposely sitting down. Wait, Alicia, are you pregnant? Jessica, are you pregnant? You guys don't look a day over 8 weeks.
Like 2 months, but hey.
I was almost bummed.
Some people start on Zoom. You go full out. Grab the go back.
It's only like, you only have to wait till
No,
yeah, that makes sense.
Ours gonna love that 5 years. It's not real.
I know.
Yeah.
That's not how much
There's been a lot.
Oh, yeah.
No, there was a stem. You holding it by the pin.
I love that.
Don't worry about it. It's in my Gary likes it. You can share. There you go. Does anyone want to? No one else? It's probably like straight.
Okay, so I'm not feeling as much as I have.
Oh, they're pretty cute.
I just grabbed the bag. All right, so I live in Salt Lake. I was raised in Idaho Falls, lived here, went to school here, then went to BYU, and went on, got an MBA. I'm the senior recruiter, so I'm over the entire state of Utah. So I've seen every type of resume, every type of interview you can imagine. So again, what I like to do is just open up the floor for questions. Any questions about resumes, about interviews, about applications, anything at all.
So for graduating nurses, I try to keep my resume just to one page. Is 2 pages okay?
If you can, put it all on one page. I'll give you insight as to how looking at a resume goes. Every resume probably gets looked at for maybe 30 seconds, maybe. That's kind of pushing it. A lot of them are closer to 15, 20 seconds. So anything you want seen, put on the front page. Anything that maybe isn't as important, if you do have a second page, leave on the second page. But anything that you definitely want seen, put on the front. And as a graduating nurse, I would recommend first thing, put your education, put your school and your graduating dates. That way they know, okay, this person is about to graduate, and they're going to understand why you don't have a lot of experience listed. After that, I would put your capstone experience, maybe the hours, especially if that's the area that you want to go into, like if you did your capstone in emergency and that's where you want to end up, highlight that, because that'll help. And then after that, you can put some of the other areas, but that's what I would do if I were graduating. Put school, your capstone, and then other clinical areas that you don't.
Do you suggest putting on your resume at all, like your previous work experience has nothing to do with nursing?
I get that question a lot, and it's kind of a tough one. If you don't have anything else, I think it's okay. If you have like CNA experience or anything patient related, or even customer service related, I think that helps. Some people put their mission service if you've gone on a mission. I think that's great. And even the directors that I work with that don't really care for the LDS faith or are ambivalent one way or the other, even they respect that. They look at that, they know what that is. They see your church mission in Salt Lake, okay, yeah, put 2 and 2 together, 9 times out of 10 it's an LDS mission. And they think that's a good thing because it shows that you've done something to care for other people, you know. So anything patient related, customer service related, you can put on there, especially if you worked in a job for a couple of years, because that always shows that you stay with things. So, yeah.
What are some automatic things like when you look at a resume or like you're in an interview, you're just like, okay, I'm not hiring this person?
That's a really good question.
Well, if you look at a resume in 30 seconds and you decide yes or no, like what determines that?
I'll have people who aren't RNs apply for nursing jobs. Obviously, that's not gonna happen.
Actually do
So, things that are on there that shouldn't be. I've never seen anything that I can recall and just said, oh, they really shouldn't have put that. But a lot of time, well, I take that back. Somebody had done some jail time and put in way too many details. If you've been in prison, disclose it on your application, don't put it on your resume. But yeah, way too many details. So I would just say keep it professional. And it should be.
Sorry, do you recommend putting a cover letter?
They're usually digital, so when you apply online, it'll usually give you that opportunity. I think it's a good thing to put in there, but I would keep it as short as possible. Don't give like a long page of this is why I am a nurse or this is what I want to do. I always liken cover letters and applications and really resumes to Facebook pages. I guess most of you are probably on Facebook. You know when you're scrolling through and you see somebody put something this long and you just don't want to read it, you just kind of browse through it. That's kind of how paragraphs are on an application. But if you see something just nice and small, that's his dog and that's hilarious, whatever. Just, I would keep things short. I would avoid even on your or on your resume, avoid paragraphs as often as possible and stick to bullet points because that shows me everything that I want to see quickly, and I can really get the idea of what you're trying to do. Whereas a paragraph, if it's written in paragraph form, it's gonna get skimmed. So keep things short, bullet points, and cover letter, keep it a paragraph at most. Yeah.
Did you know, doing, is there a disadvantage to people who do like interviews over the phone rather than coming in face to face doing an interview?
I don't think there's necessarily a disadvantage. I set up phone interviews all the time for people who live in other places who want to move to Utah, and they hire them all the time. The disadvantage, I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage, but the thing that you have to overcome is you have to show your personality over the phone rather than in person. In person, it's easy to show who you are.
Yeah.
Over the phone, you can sometimes, I don't want to say lose interest, but you can sometimes start to drift and start to think about other things. So when you're doing a phone interview, just really let as much of your personality show through as possible. And so they get a good idea of who you are. Maybe not quite as good of an idea if they're sitting with you and can see your interaction and how you interact with people, but that's just something that you have to make up if you're doing it. Yeah.
So like when someone says, tell me about yourself when you're doing the interview, what are you as a recruiter or someone looking for?
You know, that's an introduction. I personally, and I can't speak for anybody who's gonna interview you, but personally, in an introduction, I like to get an idea for who the person is. Because I know you're a nurse, or going to be a nurse soon. I know you got a bachelor's degree. I know you went to BYU-I. I know that stuff already. I want to get an idea for who you are. Tell me a little bit, like, quickly, like I grew up here. These are a few of my hobbies that I like to do outside of nursing, and this is why I decided to go into nursing. You know, just, I like to get to know a little bit about the person because I'm a people person. I already know certain things about you from your resume. So just give me a quick introduction to what makes you you and what makes you unique. So what's that? Alright, any others?
What would be your advice for getting the job now? Like to start, because there's a lot of places that we could get a job, there's a lot of openings right now. But I like specifically want to work like on a pediatric basis. So what's your advice to like getting like specific?
The best advice I could give is know that sometimes where you want to be is a destination, not a first step, especially with higher acuity type places. So the best advice I could give is be willing to work your way to where you want to get. I would say whatever first job you take, if it's not a pediatric department, find a department that will help you get there, like maybe just a regular med surg place. Or if you want to work ICU, maybe start out in telemetry or an ICU step down department. If you want to work ER, telemetry or med surg is a great place to start. There's psych nursing, and that is not necessarily, like if you got offered a psych job, that probably wouldn't be your best first step. Psych nursing is great, but it's very different from med surg. So the things that I would say would be, again, be willing to start somewhere to learn, to work your way into that department. A lot of people in my hospitals do that because you're eligible to transfer after 6 months. So you can start, get your feet wet in a hospital setting, and then transfer into our pediatric department. Other thing, be willing to work nights. Most of you will probably start a night job. That's just kind of how it is starting. Now my wife will never work days. She hates days. My wife loves working nights. She even does lectures at nursing conventions on why nights are way better than days. And she puts up a pretty convincing argument. So don't be afraid to work nights. You don't have to deal with administration. You don't have to deal with as many doctors. Sometimes patients are sleepy, which is nice. So those are the two things I would say. Don't be afraid to work nights. And if you go into an interview and say, yeah, I'm totally willing to work nights, that shows them that you're willing to be a team player, and that's what they're looking for. So be available for nights and be open to the idea of starting somewhere to get to your end. So, very good question. Any others? Alright. Well, I gave each of you one of my cards, and I always tell all students, if you have a resume and you want me to take a look at it, email it to me. I'm happy to take a look at it for you. Just say, hey, I met you here. I had quite a few students from last semester email me, and I gave them pointers. Some of them were perfect. Some of them I rearranged a few things. Help one nurse get an interview in Colorado. If any of you are headed to Utah, let me know. I can hook you up. But whether you're interested in one of my hospitals or not, I'm more than happy to take a look at your resume and give you some pointers. So, happy to do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
You had mentioned you weren't going to talk about IASIS necessarily because, you came to talk about resumes, but I really think the students would like to hear about various, healthcare systems and what you offer, so please feel free to go
Okay.
into that.
Well, I guess to tell you a little bit about IASIS itself. It's headquartered in Tennessee. We have 20 hospitals across the country. We have 5 hospitals and a surgery center in Utah. So the ones that I'm personally over don't necessarily recruit for, but over are Davis. Is anyone from Utah? So I recognize some of these. Davis is in Layton. Salt Lake Regional Medical Center is right downtown Salt Lake. There is Jordan Valley West in West Valley, Jordan Valley Medical Center in West Jordan. Mountain Point is a fairly new one in Lehigh, so in Utah County. And then we also own Riverwood Surgery Center in Provo. We do have hospitals in Arizona, Colorado, Texas. We just sold the ones in Florida. Where else? Anyway, in a couple of months, we're merging with a company called Stewart Healthcare, and they also own about 20 hospitals, so we'll have 4 in and most of theirs are in the Northeast. They're based in Boston, Massachusetts. So. But the nice thing about our hospitals is we focus on community-based hospitals rather than big ginormous hospitals. Not that there's anything wrong with big, huge hospitals, but we focus on community hospitals. And the reason that I like that is each department really is able to create their own culture. There's not a top-down, because it's a big hospital, there's not really a top-down culture creation. Each director has that opportunity, and because of that, nurses get the opportunity to have input into the culture of each department. So that's why I like the smaller community-based hospitals. But, yeah, so that's a little bit about IASIS, but again, we'll be Stewart Healthcare in a couple of months. So I'll have to get you business cards.
Okay, this is about your resume again.
Yeah.
This may sound like a really stupid question, but do you guys care at all about like high school experience, or should we just leave off anything high school related and only focus on college?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I've seen on there, you know, somebody worked as a lifeguard at something school, or somebody. I saw one student that worked as a CNA their senior year. I saw. I worked at a grocery store for 2 years, and I've seen different things like that, and I think it's great, because to me that shows that it's a person who is willing to work and willing to do things while other people might necessarily.
So with like extracurriculars or like graduating like honors or anything, or
I put honors. Extracurriculars aren't really too.
okay.
But if you have work experience in high school, you can put that if you graduated, you know, at the top of your class or with honors. I say go for it.
What about like leadership type positions, like student council, team captains?
You know, I think that's great. I think it's great. Once you have your first nursing job, then you can kind of put all that stuff aside. But I think that's great for your first one. Absolutely. Any others?
I have a question. So I was in an interview and they asked me this question, okay? They said, what is a characteristic that someone gives you that you don't agree with? Now, how do you answer that?
What?
You mean like that's how somebody's labeled you?
Yeah. You don't want to be like, oh, well, some people think I'm mean, but I'm really not. It does that say a job. So
That's a tough one. They always say in interviews when you get a tough question to try to turn it around to show a positive side or to show how you learned from something. So you could say, a few years ago I was in a job and I was characterized as being unsocial because I sat at my cubicle and never talked to anybody. But I learned through my clinicals that that's not the way it works in nursing, and you have to be a team player. Or, you know, so that's one way of saying how you've learned and how you've grown. Another thing you could say, the thing I hate, because you always hear the question, what's your worst quality? Oh, my character's not sure. I work too hard. It's not for anybody. I mean, it's a good answer, but it's not for anybody. So the other example I would give is maybe try something to turn a negative into a positive. Similar to that, but that's the most overused answer to that question. Is I care too much or I work too hard. For me, I never take days off. I take like 2 days off a year, and it actually makes my bosses mad, but I don't take days off. And so I'm trying to change that, but so that's probably what I would say. So there's a few examples of what you could use. But anytime you can bring your clinicals into it and how your clinicals will help you change an attitude or behavior, I think that's a good way to go. But I've never actually heard that question, so I hope you got through it okay.
what did you say? I said, well, my husband thinks I'm perfect, but I know I'm not. What about, you know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
So I said that, and then I said that, so this one guy that I interviewed had said that I wasn't confident. Or he's like, you're too hard on yourself, you're not very confident. And I said, what? Because I feel like I am confident. But he was saying, well, whenever you have one of those big tests, you always say, if I pass it, if I pass it. Well, yeah. Because I'm not going to be like, I am the best you have ever seen. And no test, you know what I mean? I'm not going to walk into it being like, look, they're lucky to have me. That's not the way it works. So I just said that something to the effect of, that I'm confident, but I'm not overly confident. Where
You're real.
yeah, but I did get the job, so that's good.
You're hired.
You know, a lot of questions like that are not necessarily to hear what you answer, but to see how you react. It's a question to make you think and to make you think on your feet, similar to a lot of nursing situations. So a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, it's a question to see how quickly you can think on your feet, and if nothing else, make something up. So I once asked the girl who's now not my assistant, but works under me. I asked her if she would rather fight 100 horse, what was it? 100 horse-sized, no, 1 horse-sized chicken or 100 chicken-sized horses. It was just the most bizarre question. She just said, "Oh, I'd probably rather fight the 1 horse-sized chicken."
What? Get that.
I guess I wasn't asking because I really don't care to see what kind of person she was. Showing things. All right. Any others? Well, I will leave you to it, but again, if you have any questions, if I can help you with anything, feel free to call me. You can call, email, text, whatever. I'm happy to help anyone. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Something would pop your head off. It hurts down there. The hatred counts as a nursing.
You always double whatever happens to you.
20 minutes and then.
Okay, I can drive. We'll drive the ride.
I'm driving.
You're not driving. Is that what Brandon is? You need to drive. I just want to
Well, I went to my wife's first.
Hey, I'll be back about
Seriously,
4 hours.
man.
Like right now, you're
No clue where.
It's pretty good. Like maybe and that's what my resume was. I had very short term job, like there didn't be any. Yeah, I have like.
Where are you going to?
She said that like
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah,
When are you going?
I work for my dad. We're going, but I don't know about school.
He's got.
I don't know.
What kind of-
For 4 years.
I already have one.
I only have one thing in each category. There's a lot of categories.
Where?
And then I'm thinking like right now, I already resigned library license. So that actually helped my application.
I know what you're talking about. Because that's where I go.
it's nice living in Idaho. All of
Yeah,
so
and it lets you.
What in the world are you gonna write about? Like, you're so much about being a nurse if I walk.
my 8 hours.
I don't know how long you are. I know it's one of the requirements. Johnson and Johnson, some company will pay money for like a conference, like contribute to like a cost.
I mean, it definitely wouldn't hurt.
I should have been tracking. I did every day. I just.
They probably have when you. So over there, I don't wanna like start the week and be like, oh.
The things that I'm not doing. It makes me sick.
But they're hoping they're going to have by the end of July. I know by speech and then they'll be able to.
Yeah, my milk.
Don't take my word for it. We're not feeling it.
Yeah, so
You psych yourself out.
chances are you'll probably get this before you're.
Right now. I can tell. I can see the look in my face.
That's the only reason why I'm like, out of anyone,
I just jumped up and gave
which I'm excited about that, because I was trying to debate them, like.
I know, but you'll totally fine. Like if I don't.
No.
We can work together.
Yeah, I'm just worried about this wedding.
You can totally.
I can't even imagine. I feel like really. No, that's what I kind of meant. Never met.
That's right.
They all know I never put a word in the steer by a word too. Okay, dude, you're indeed.
Well, I'm so stressed.
So Prince and Robin.
Well, if we have 33 people or
10 and 11. 10 and 11.
Are you guys talking about the?
No, I was like, I told my mom last night she was like, we're doing a bunch. She's like, I'll do it
Just.
myself.
Wait,
Can I
It's a little strange because I have vaccinations to go
the only issue though
have the means to do it. So anytime I feel overrun.
I don't know.
We do Monday,
I don't know.
Like,
It's
should we do Monday?
Much worse.
Because I bet people haven't. We could do either one, just depending, like, the thing is, we just need, like, why don't we ask if we have it and let's buy that. I just don't think if you don't have it, it's totally fine. Nobody's gonna zoom in on the pin. You're not doing this for long. I told you that. It's just like to see like that playing Disney pins. Yeah, it's just like I know, I never want to do like a slideshow, like pictures of everybody, and I want to do like superlatives, you guys, and like, I know, that would be so fun. They're like, person most likely to, yeah, or like this, best yellow, right, yeah, I know, right, most likely to all Jesse's.
My group I shared just do it by myself, but it sounds like that won't work either. I don't know.
Where do you even get to?
I don't know how, but
No,
it's doing
it's
something. I don't know if you're on generation.
So that's yeah.
But he said Jason, and I was like, so he's right.
It's true. Really? Like super fluffy. I feel like all of it. I mean, like honestly, I totally
Yeah, well, what's wrong with the paper?
If you had your clicks on there, just like, okay.
So I'm not sure
I was like, I didn't do multi-generational because it said this or this, and I was like, well, like the internet, for me, it didn't sound like the problem was really multi-generational.
Yeah.
Well, because I couldn't decide what, well, so I just went with, these are the problems that I saw based on the post. And so I didn't do multi-generational, although I thought that's what it was supposed to be. So I was like, okay, here's the problem.
Very rude, and I hope you fail every
It shouldn't be a bad thing to have stories. So, yeah.
My last is faculty, so we are. I don't keep
Look, Sister Former, say hi.
Is it still on? Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, that's the reality. We're still watching Planet.
Yeah.
I had the video.
Oh, I know
So
this.
how do you, I don't know what to write. I feel like the instructions are like, what do you agree? I don't know.
Well, I'm going to set up.
For what? Your.
I did all three of them.
I just did one. I just hate.
And I was like, it's late.
I turned it on and I saw my grade book and like, oh, that's so nice.
I thought you were saying like you like did an interview and video, and I was like, what a great job.
I don't know. I think it was a mistake, but I'm not.
Hey, Alex, you have a good history. Alex.
Oh, yeah.
You get And so he's basically I know, I just was saying.
No, he's not there, yeah. No, I've never.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the people from our cohort that also got held out.
Picture what you say. So I was hoping you'd be in class today. I thought I'll just try to get on the class.
Yeah. I just haven't.
Exactly the same as someone else.
Yeah, that's sad.
I me too, I was like, well, I was talking to Sarah.
I feel like
And I was like, dude, like, what has she been doing? I was like, so good. Well, she probably got it, but I really like your reference. She's like, yeah, I didn't get it. But she do not turn this into
Yep.
Makes me feel really bad. Right there.
Using that for it, and I never went back. Yeah. For me, I wasn't expecting. I thought that I would be fine.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not people scared.
It's just hard when, it's hard when other classes don't really have.
Anyway, yes, for real. Are you guys? Yes, we're gonna find out.
Says like my mom has really like
Oh yeah,
she loves it. She knows my
yeah. My mom does have her own like wedding decorations. Oh, now you more often than I'm joining. Okay. I just did a little like nursing penny stickers.
Yeah, my mom, she, because I talked about it, graduate stand-up, like she didn't know things about how I told her.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, anybody who needs to know what I like is welcome to as long as we like really stuff we like what topics.
Like each
We'll have to get our mom.
My mom is the same way.
Yeah, I did too. All my essentials. Like, I looked into renting that. I looked into renting that for the library. I don't know if you can rent specifically, but I think it's the MC, you just have to like apply for it and you can get it for a maximum of 3 hours. So, yeah, I saw her on some of the they have like theaters that are outside BYU-I. But my mom said, no, we can't. I mean, we can get around that. It was really good. My sister, for like, taught that, like, she did so that she didn't even or give us yeah, it's so no one really wants to be there for that anyway. Like we did I'd rather like yes. And then like no, you don't. Well, you should watch that. Well, some people the MC like you're just sitting there, you don't even so I'm not giving out when you walk out. Well, I'm just saying like the break. I don't want it to be like how long? Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah. We need a well, I was just curious how was the only
Yeah, I think so. I don't see there's a
Yeah, we'll just need to get like a, yeah, we'll just need to get like a.
It's like that's
Well, right now, I mean, it's perfect. I was gonna do it on Facebook. But not everybody has space. Because that's in Alex and Anna. He got like kicked out of the.
So like,
Oh, we're not?
yeah, I was
Live.
so like, well, Angela is the
You can't put.
Yeah, like if your family does not get two kids.
I didn't know the kids. I'm gonna make it. So she's like, I have you last year.
So we can do face recognition.
Yeah.
So.
But, and then like let everybody know stuff we got.
Yeah, you don't even have to have a kid.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Like you
Yes,
can,
like my
that's like a
son.
sticker. Maybe not. But
You
they're not.
guys planning it?
It's you guys. It's the nursing closing social.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm gonna get, do you think it's okay if I just use like a gold star?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
just a more happy face sticker?
Yes.
I think that's-
Whatever that makes you feel honored. Like that's all.
If a lot of people were doing it, then yeah, that sounds good.
And poor Derek, I think he was distracted
So-
with
So you have to be
trying
all
to figure out why.
We just talked.
Are you guys trying to get me as like your celebrity endorsement?
Actually, I had it.
I figured as much. All you guys wanted to use my Just
So it could be, but like, I feel like the more people we get to do.
thanks to some whole shit.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so basically, I wrote this down, I was thinking so many ideas last night, so I wrote it all down. I know this is ahead of the game, because we haven't scheduled a room yet. But, so I'm thinking of like, just like a basic program, I was telling about there, but we'll just have like the welcome, like we'll have somebody say opening remarks, and then like same thing.
I do.
Okay, great. Well, okay.
Do you have one?
I should have just.
Not very
bad. I want them, they definitely, no, it's good. I just, you know, the thing is
Hannah,
that.
can you call me real quick?
Yeah. It's not university.
That's what happened. So even if it was streamed.
Yeah, just like, so we can say something. Okay, so if we say that, it should be fine, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to invite certain instructors?
Stop streaming, stop recording.
We have to do
And recording.
Yeah.